Hi everyone, welcome to the July newsletter, Do News, and we're in the season of health. June, July, and August we talk about and are inspired by healthy things. And what is it that makes us healthier? So often we think it's a quick fix, that we can just lift up our cries to the God of heaven and He will hear us and deliver us from whatever ailment it is that we have. And what I've found is it's not quite that simple. That when we're sick, physically sick, there's some things that we have to do to make ourselves better. Drink plenty of fluids, take an antibiotic, get plenty of rest. And so we have to be active in the healing process. Last year, I came across a curriculum that piqued my interest called the Genesis process. I didn't really know a lot about it, but I knew it was to help people change. That it was a curriculum created on the West Coast to help people who were in addiction to substance, to food, to sex, to all the things that we can be addicted to, but it was more than that. It was a curriculum that we could walk through to answer the verse that so many of us have struggled with that Paul wrote in Romans 7:15. This is what the verse says. It says, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. Haven't you found yourself there? That the very thing that you want to do, you don't do. And the very thing you don't want to do, you do it anyway. I have found myself there so many times without answers, without understanding what is this problem and why can I not solve it. And as I walked through investigating the Genesis process, then I began to understand that that's what their curriculum addressed. These behaviors, whether you're a hardcore addict or whether you're a person who struggles just with a behavior that you can't seem to get rid of. And you know, I walk with God, I read the Word, I go to church on Sundays, but I have this behavior that I hate. And I can't change it. So last fall, Dufresne Ministries invested in sending me out to be trained in the Genesis process. I flew to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho with 100 other people from all over the United States, and we took a 40-hour crash course in the Genesis process and the change books. The picture on the front of the newsletter with me and my head down on the desk is the exhaustion that I felt learning to grow, to heal, understanding self-destructive behavior, and how it is that we could actually experience victory and change. The thing I think is so interesting is you and I worship a creator God who created the universe that changes every moment. Change is part of our culture. It's part of our past. It's part of our present. It will be part of our future. The world is a changing place. But yet so often in our personal lives, we are so resistant to change. When I was in Idaho learning the Genesis process, my why began to be for why I wanted to bring this back to this ministry and our community and the churches that you and I are in is because I heard story after story of lives that were transformed by the gospel, by the biblical principles of the gospel and the neuroscience of our brain and how they mesh together to create a process where you and I could begin to look at our pain and our fear in our life and recognize our self-destructive behavior and our coping mechanisms. And then if we could become self-aware and we could recognize these things that are going on inside our soul, inside of our emotions, inside of our brain, our body, our soul, and our spirit, we could eventually be set free of them. Well, see, I want to be free because when you're free of all of the baggage and the emotional unhealthiness that we carry around with us that creates physical unhealthiness in our bodies, then we are free to worship God in a different way. And oh, I want that. I want to be free of my emotional distresses and my physical ailments and the things that haunt me and the behaviors that I've created that protect me and give me coping mechanisms. As I did the 40-hour, the week-long training, I became acutely aware that this process worked. As I did the homework for myself, as I learned to be a Genesis counselor, I recognized that this was the real deal. That the grace of God was all over it, under it, and around it. That the gospel of Jesus Christ, empowered with self-awareness and some real deep, hard, emotional work, that we could truly be set free from anything, and that we could live a healthy and a holy life. That we could learn to build healthy relationships with people and walk in harmony again and be filled with hope. So I brought the Genesis process back to North Carolina, and I brought it back with change books. And right now I'm taking 19 leaders at Do For Him Ministries through the change book, so that by the first of the year, we will be ready ourselves to have had some personal growth and some personal healing, so that we will be freer to worship God and freer to lead others. And see, God says with the comfort that He comforts us, we will also be able to comfort others. And I just know that as my team walks through the change necessary to be healthy, that we will want to share that with each of you who are looking at your lives and saying, wow, I want to change this behavior. And I want to get healthy too. So this morning, as I conclude this, I want you to just have a taste of God as our healer. I was reading Exodus chapter 15, and I was reading the song of deliverance that Moses and Miriam wrote as they celebrated the Exodus out of Egypt, and the Israelites celebrated what God had done for them. And at the very end of this passage, they were at a new place. The Israelites were at a place where they recognized their thirst. They'd been in the wilderness for several days with no water, and they began to complain and grumble and murmur to Moses that they were thirsty, and had he certainly brought them into the wilderness for them to die. Sometimes we feel like that, don't we? We think we're going through change so that God can bring us into a place that we're surely going to be miserable at. And to begin with, that's what change feels like. Change feels like we are walking away from every single thing in our life that's familiar. And that it's hard and it's dry and it's deserted and nobody understands, just like the Israelites. They came to this pool of water, and I'm sure they were so excited about the potential that had for them to just take a sip, and the water was bitter. I wonder, and I feel this in my own life, that when I begin to change and I begin to see potential, then all of a sudden I taste something that's just a little bitter. And it takes me back a step. And then I have to begin to understand what that looks like and how to cope with that. God told Moses to throw a log in the water, and the water turned the water sweet. And then the Israelites, as they drank the water, their thirst began to be quenched. And God reminded him, I am Jehovah Rapha. I am the Lord your God, your healer. And he doesn't just heal us, ladies, from our physical ailments. He heals us from our emotional distresses. And ladies, if we can tap in and walk through a change book and learn and become self-aware of our fears and our pains and our coping mechanisms, then we can let go of some of that self-destructive behavior, and we can begin to walk in health and harmony again, and we can begin to worship God at a whole different level of freedom. Oh, it's hard work. That's why my head was laid down on that desk. And sometimes it's really hard work and really painful. Sometimes it's scary because we are walking away from familiar. But ladies, let me tell you, it is worth the change. It is worth the journey into the wilderness so that we can one day walk into the land of milk and honey and experience God in a different way. I hope that as you look towards your future, you too will whet your appetite for change and wanting to get healthy. And turn to God, Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. And draw near to him to heal your heart and your hopes and make you healthy. Have a blessed month.